Welcome to Coffee with Viking. I am Mike, also known as the Viking. Cheers. And it's hard to believe that we are now halfway through this year. I hope you all have a blessed June. And today's devotion, the nature of conversion. Psalm 113:3. From the rising of the sun to the place where it sets, the name of the Lord is to be praised. Conversion can take many different forms. The way it is accomplished depends largely upon the individual, his temperament, his emotional balance, his environment, and his way of life. Conversion may follow a great crisis in a person's life, or it could come after all former values have been swept away. When great disappointment has been experienced, when one has lost one's sense of power through material possessions or lost the object of one's affection. And I can tell you right now, that is very true, because what led to my conversion was the loss of everything, which took a toll on my mental state in the beginning of it all. But when the conversion hit, I saw the beauty in everything, even the losses, and I saw the purpose behind it, and I learned it was better to lose when I thought I was winning without Christ. It is better to lose and then gain victory with Christ leading the way. Or again, conversion may take place at the very height of personal power or prosperity, when all things are going well and the bountiful mercies of God have been bestowed generously upon you. Conversion can be an instantaneous event, or it can be a gradual unfolding. And with me, it wound up actually being gradual. It didn't hit instantly. Of course, I was rebelling against it for the longest time too, and before I gave in. And I know I'm not alone on that one. Many young people who have grown up in Christian homes and had the benefit of Christian training are unaware of the time when they committed their lives to Christ. Somehow, someone has said, we may not know the exact moment when the sun rises, but we most certainly know once it has risen. What is your conversion story? Well, to answer that question, I was actually engaged. And she wound up having an affair with the neighbor, which led me to, in my rage and anger, leave, which put me on the streets for about 10 years. And I had an uncle that wound up taking me into his home for a little bit, and him and his wife, my aunt through that marriage, they wound up, handing me a Bible and telling me if I need true help, this is where I'll find it. And I actually took the Bible, I laughed at him, and then I threw it across the room and onto a bed and told him that ain't gonna help me. What'll help me will be lots of money and getting back on my feet. But I later on did learn that what they said was true, because one night in my frustration, while I was still there, in my anger, and I was cussing at God and everything, which you never hear me use foul words, and I try not to anymore. And I told God, and learned a lesson that night too. Don't challenge God, because I told God if He could prove to me His existence, I would devote my life to Him. And then I rolled back over, started watching the movie Rebel Without a Cause, and I don't know what happened, but it seemed like I wasn't in that room anymore. I came to, and I was in a very small cage, drenched in sweat, and the cage door, it opened up. I crawled out, and as I pulled myself up to my feet, I kept hearing noises behind me and beside me, and wound up being attacked, being ripped apart flesh by flesh, and after taking my final breath, woke back up in that cage. And this went on for what seemed like an eternity, until I saw something. It was like a bright neon blue cross shape coming down, and a shadow on it, and in a very calming voice it said, "Come." And the cage door opened, and I kept refusing, but every refusal I kept hearing the words, "Come," and it remained calm and peaceful every time until I finally crawled out of the cage. Refusing to get back on my feet, was crawling, and it wound up being like steps I wound up getting up to, and it was like I was being embraced in a hug, and whatever I was standing on started lifting up. And then I woke up drenched in sweat, had this uncurable thirst, so I ran down to my uncle's kitchen and was drinking water nonstop. And I told him about it, and he said that you challenged God. He showed you what you wanted to see and what you needed to see. And it was that day on that I slowly, even in a slight rebellion after the promise I made to God, I started devoting my life to Him. And the crazy thing about it is, when I looked at the clock when I came to, what felt like an eternity was only 5 minutes. Only 5 minutes had passed on that clock. So I have learned, don't challenge God. And I have worked hard to keep my word with Him by serving Him. And when I was homeless, I actually was doing street ministries. And in the shelters I was staying at, was doing my Bible studies and trying to grow. Now I got a question for you. What is your conversion story? Stay blessed. Stay caffeinated. And have a blessed and wonderful day.